Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Shalom, people. As first, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's fine. A couple of days ago, I did a video about Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkinabè, Captain Traore. And I prefaced that video by saying that there is no shortage of sellout Sambo coon-ass house niggas that's always willing to go against a black man who is trying to, how can I put it, revolution. He's trying to free his people, right? There's never a shortage of those. Ever. And the first fucker that I brought up was this piece of shit. Now, an accomplished black man. Under normal circumstances, I'd be singing his praises, but he came across as a real shrill, a shill or a stooge for the imperialists, for the government, particularly the United States. This is a general, and he's the commander of AFRICOM, and he's over in the Ivory Coast right now plotting on how to bring down Ibrahim Traoré. So I was initially talking about him, right? Because he has some scathing shit to say about Ibrahim Traoré. I got to figure out how to say that name. I keep butchering it. Anyway, fuck him. That's General Michael Langley. And he's tasked with either deposing, overthrowing, or arresting, or even killing Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso. So that's who I initially was calling a Sambo sellout coon-ass nigger right there, that piece of shit. Because they always use a black man, and the black man is always really ready and willing to go against another black man for his white master. Fucking coon, I can't stand your face, fucker. And normally, again, I would sing his praises because he's an accomplished black man, right? But he's going after another black man, so fuck him. Now, the fucker I'm talking about today is this piece of shit. His name is Oba some shit. Let me see. Hold on. He's another accomplished black man. And he wrote an article, a scathing article. Ebenezer Obadare, right? Very accomplished. And let me just run down his accolades for you so that you can see. Yeah. You know, he's hot shit. Right? But he wrote an article, and I read it, and I didn't like it. And I'm going to play it for you. But here's what he is. His name is Ebenezer Obadare, and he is a Douglas Dillon Senior Fellow for Africa Studies at the Council of Foreign Relations, the CFR. We already know what that is, right? We got Alex Jones and thanks for another bunch of other people who told us about the CFR. Now, before joining the CFR, he was professor of sociology at the University of Kansas in Lawrence. He's also a senior fellow at the New York University School of Professional Studies Center for Global Affairs. He's hot shit. as well as a fellow University of South Africa's Institute on Theology. He's author of numerous works on civil society and the state and the religion and politics in Africa. His most recent book, published by the University of Notre Dame Press, is titled Pastoral Power, Clerical State, Pentecostalism, Gender and Sexuality in Nigeria. So you know what that means, right? You know, he's in support of all that weird shit. He got a lot of other shit going on for himself, right? He was Ralph Dahrendorf's scholar and Ford Foundation International Scholar at the London School of Economics and Political Science, where he completed his PhD in social policy in 2005. He holds a BA in history and an MS, a master's in international relations from the Obafemi Awolowo University in Ife, Nigeria. I'm sorry if I'm butchering all that. You know, it is what it is. Now, he was a political reporter for The News and Tempo magazines from 93 to 95, a lecturer in international relations at the university over there, Obafemi Awolowo, from 95 to 2001. And his primary areas of interest are civil society, the state, religion, and politics in Africa. He's hot shit. He wrote a lot of books. Right? Here's just a few. The first one, Christianity, Sexuality and Citizenship in Africa, Pentecostal Republic, Religion and the Struggle for State Power in Nigeria, Governance and the Crisis of Rule in Contemporary Africa. He's accomplished. He got a lot of shit going on for himself, right? Yeah, he got a lot of shit. He's written for Foreign Affairs, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the National Interest, Foreign Policy, the Globe, and Mail. He is the editor of Journal of Modern African Studies and contributing editor of Current History. All that to say that he got shit, right? But he wrote an article like really coming at Ibrahim Traoré, another motherfucker. And excuse my language if any children are watching this, but they piss me off. He wrote an article speaking out against Ibrahim Traoré. So I want you to listen to it, right? Let's just go with it. Here, this is him.
The Cult of Traoré. Rather than a beacon of hope, Burkinabè Tyrant Ibrahim Traoré is a pointer to everything that is wrong with the continent. Posed by Ebenezer Obadare, author. Against all odds, Ada for a certain kind of authoritarianism is having a moment in Africa. Among a cross-section of its intelligentsia and general public, the idea of a lawgiver appears suddenly to be back in good order. The reason behind this infatuation is not difficult to divine. There is, for one thing, understandable frustration with the slow progress of democracy, and, for another, the weakness of the political leadership, even in those countries where civil rule may be said to have made the most advance. Whatever one's feelings about the political leaders of the immediate post-independence years, think Julius Nyerere, Sekou Touré, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, Kenneth Kaunda, there is no arguing that they fill the room and the imagination in a way that many of their contemporary peers simply cannot. An additional factor is amnesia, particularly regarding the ruinous legacy of the military in power, more on which later. If, arguably unlike any other era in the region's history, the historical moment favors the emergence of a charismatic lawgiver, no leader epitomizes or speaks to the zeitgeist more than Burkinabè strongman Ibrahim Traoré. Like his military brothers in arms across the Sahel and Central Africa, Traoré, who took power in September 2022.
I apologize for the feedback. I had the speakers on oversight, but let's continue.
Has never been shy about his intention to monopolize it. He has said openly, and, just to be sure, incorrectly, that no country has ever developed under democracy, the clearest indication, if any were needed, that he will not be getting involved in an electoral contest anytime soon.
Basically, there won't be any elections. and he's trying to use that against him. You know, again, he's being used to as part of the propaganda machine to discredit and villainize or vilify, excuse me, demonize and vilify Ibrahim Traoré.
Accordingly, Traore has moved to combine economic populism. Both the nationalization of the country's gold mines and reported distribution of free tractors to farmers have unimploded with political oppression, co-opting or, where that is not possible, cracking down on the opposition. As a strategy of consolidation, none of this is new or, for experts, unexpected. As historian Samuel Fury Charles Daly reminds us in his timely and important new book, contrary to the settled impression that the military in power in Africa simply marches to its own beat, in reality, military objectives blur into politics in often unexpected ways, producing a militarism his term for ruled by soldiers, that is neither what the soldiers envisioned, nor what their adversaries feared. Soon enough, soldiers in power discover not only that there are numerous hitherto unknown gods to propitiate, but they also realize that some of the strings of African politics must be, willy-nilly, pulled. In the end, what begins as an idealistic assault on power often ends up as a deep and entangling compromise with it as the rubber of glorious revolutions and martial utopias meets the road of uncharted political landscapes, wayward legislatures, and implacable civil societies. Having gained power through coercion, the military quickly learns that it takes more than that to keep it. Traore is not the only African military adventurer quickly learning this lesson and pulling all the stops in a bid to hold on to the reins. Having similarly mounted the saddle on the back of earnest promises to restore sanity to the political space, the regimes in Niger, Mali, Guinea, and Chad have resorted to the same combination of economic populism, constitutional manipulation, and aggressive social pacification. Gabon, where Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema has just completed a stunning transition from soldier to civilian president in less than 2 years, is an instructive omen. Yet, while the various juntas have all clearly taken a page from the same playbook, Traore has been the one who has stood out. Described in quasi-mythical terms, the words liberator, transformative, visionary, exceptional, courageous, and savior recur in fawning references to him. He is arguably the only contemporary African leader about whom fondness is mixed with an unmistakable adulation. When he is not being idolized as the second coming of Thomas Sankara, the country's one-time charismatic leader who was tragically assassinated by his friend Blaise Compaoré in October 1987, he is glorified as the chosen herald of a vaguely defined Pan-African renaissance. A former Nigerian senator's description of Traore as the spirit of a continent yearning to be free, dignified, and prosperous may be misguided and overblown, but it is typical of the solicitude for Traore, whose loyalists can be expected to verbally assault just about anyone. The author of this essay has the scars to prove it, who dares veer off script. Traore is not above fanning the embers of his own monumentalization. There is the absurd theater of his sartorial selection, meant to project strength and a defiant masculinity. Add to that, the familiar choreography of alleged attempted assassinations and attempted coups d'état.
Alright, so what he's saying there is the choreography, right? I think that's how he put it. The choreography of the alleged assassination attempt. Basically, he's saying that Ibrahim's a liar. That there were no attempts on his life, even though there were, according to himself, his cabinet, his prime minister, and the people of his country. This fuckbag wants you to believe that, oh, it's all bullshit. But, you know, let him just continue. We'll get back to it.
The latest one just a couple of weeks ago, that ultimately serve as a pretext for the arrest and detention of enemies of state. And then there is Traore's robotic anti-Westernism, a pose, seemingly dictated by a resolve to expose mal.
Wait, let's be clear. He's saying that all of that talk of assassination attempts and coup d'etats trying to take over, what he did basically, is so that he could start arresting people, you know, going after his enemies, his political enemies.
Euro-American forces ostensibly scheming against African progress, after AFRICOM Commander General Michael Langley, in his April 3 testimony before the United States Senate Committee on Armed Services, correctly remarked that the coups across the Sahel owe collectively to entrenched corruption, slow economic development, weak democratic institutions, and limited strategic Patients in the sub-region, Traore loyalists were quick to interpret the general's comments as a personal attack on their icon. General Langley was dragged over the coals as a shield of imperialist forces, and reminded that Burkina Faso is not a district of the United States. South Africa's opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters EFF, which has long supported what it calls Traoré's resistance against neo-colonial pressures, condemned Langley's statement as yet another proof of the West's continued interference in African nations' affairs. To be sure, not all of the apparent support for Traoré is homegrown, never mind genuine. The role of the Kremlin in propping up Traoré as the arrowhead of a digital onslaught on liberal democracy and associated Western values in Africa has been well documented. Still, Moscow aside, there is enough evidence that for some Africans, Traoré fulfills a certain salvific yearning, one apparently unmeetable. Under the auspices of liberal democracy. Oddly enough, some of Traoré's most fervent backers are Western-based actors whose passion for Africa tends to exceed actual knowledge of the region, whose concern for the welfare of Africa never extends as far as holding Africans and African leaders accountable for their actions, who automatically sign up for any cause so far as it bears an anti-Western label, and who irresponsibly preach dictatorship for Africa from the safety and comfort of Western capitals where their lives are secured by the same liberal regime they typically denounce as alien to Africa.
Alright, so what he's saying there is that everybody who talks shit about Africa and the problems that are going on are doing it from the safety of Western civilization. Basically, y'all full of shit is what he's saying. This is a real piece of work.
It is bad enough that, after the continent's ghastly experience during the last wave of military coups, some Africans have decided to put their faith in yet another mildly cartoonish scoundrel.
He called him a scoundrel, a charlatan. He's saying that basically Ibrahim's a fucking fraud, and rather that President Traoré is a fraud. I shouldn't call him Ibrahim because, he's the president of Burkina Faso. Show him some fucking respect. Put some respect on his name like Baby said, you heard? But he's really trying to discredit him, really trying to demonize and vilify him. Check him out.
It's uniquely disappointing that, in an age in which the opportunity to express African agency has never been greater, many African intellectuals continue to harbor a conspiratorial view of international politics and diplomacy, one that Traoré, as untutored as they come, has stepped into exploit. No matter the justice of Africa's presumed grievances against Western countries, sticking it to the West is not a development strategy. Nor is military rule, a barbarity that the rest of the developed world has definitively turned its back on, any more acceptable for being championed by yet another charlatan mouthing all the right ideological pieties and promising yet another soldier's paradise. There is the absurd theater of his sartorial.
Okay, so, a charlatan, you heard him, right? He said he's a charlatan. And the mindset of the conspiracy against the Western influence. Now, let me just go here real quick. Let me remind you why shit is going down in Africa the way it's going down. I played this in the last video. This is why. So when he said that it's a conspiracy against the Western influence, or the imperialist, or whatever the fuck where they're just conspiring and the West is so great for Africa, listen to this. This is what the fuck is real.
We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is. Also.
Okay, so I'm going to bring that back, right? Because this is why there's a revolution in Africa, particularly Burkina Faso. Why Africans want all foreign influence controlled. Listen to what this white man is saying about Africa.
We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape. We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about where it is, impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. Let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is.
All right. Let's do that again. I want y'all to really pay attention to this demon and understand why everyone is against the Western influence and control of Africa, the continent, particularly Burkina Faso right now.
We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them to. We will not.
I think you got it right. I think you heard it. I think you understand that the Western power, Europe, the United States, China, and every other foreign player, for lack of a better word right now, that everyone who's involved in Africa, they got their hand in the cookie jar. They're conspiring together to keep it impoverished because they need the materials dirt cheap. You heard it from the white man's mouth. Don't listen to no sellout Sambo coon-ass house nigga that's telling you anything different because they're being paid by the white man to demonize, vilify, discredit all revolutionaries, kind of like Judas did Christ and everybody else. Don't mind that. I'm not even going to answer it. And I apologize. I should have turned it off. But don't listen to nobody, to anybody that's telling you anything different about President Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré. My bad. Now, in response to Ebenezer Obadare's article, what he called the Cult of Traoré, I wrote a response. I'm going to read that response to you now, right? I looked to see if anyone else had done it. No one has done anything yet. So what I'm going to do is read what I wrote. All right, so here we go. In response to Ebenezer Obadare's recent tirade, the Cult of Traoré is a masterclass in condescending Western paternalism, masquerading as informed commentary. Basically, he's full of shit himself. It reeks of the same neo-colonial arrogance that has plagued African nations for centuries, and it deserves nothing but the most vehement repudiation. Obadari's central thesis that Captain Ibrahim Traoré is a tyrant and a cartoonish scoundrel. He called him a cartoonish scoundrel. That's a gross mischaracterization of a leader attempting to reclaim his nation's sovereignty. He decries the ador for a certain kind of authoritarianism, yet conveniently ignores the very real failures of Western-backed democratic models that have left nations like Burkina Faso mired in corruption and instability. Now, his nostalgic yearning for the charismatic lawgivers of the post-independence era is a selective amnesia. he conveniently omits the very real authoritarian tendencies of these figures and their often disastrous economic policies. He dismisses the legitimate grievances of the Burkinabè people. Burkinabè? Am I saying that right? Burkinabè people as mere amnesia, a patronizing dismissal of their lived experiences. The charge of economic populism leveled against Traoré is particularly galling. Nationalizing gold mines and distributing tractors to farmers are not acts of oppression. They are attempts to wrest control of Burkina Faso's resources from the hands of foreign exploiters and distribute them to the people. Obadari's disdain, this is the guy who wrote the article, his disdain for these policies reveal his allegiance to the very economic structures that have impoverished the continent. His dismissal of Traoré's anti-Westernism as a mere pose is equally offensive. The West's history of meddling in African affairs, its support for corrupt regimes, and its insatiable appetite for the continent's resources are not figments of Traoré's imagination. They are historical realities that continue to shape the present. Obadari's assertion that sticking it to the West is not a developmental strategy is a classic example of Western condescension. It implies that African nations are incapable of charting their own course, that they must remain subservient to Western interests. Traoré's pursuit of alternative partnerships, including with Russia, is a pragmatic response to the West's history of broken promises and exploitative practices. His dismissal of the quasi-mythical descriptions of Traoré as a liberator and savior reveals his deep-seated contempt for the African people's agency. They are not mindless followers of a cult, because that's what he called his article, the Cult of Traoré. They are a people who have endured decades of misrule and foreign interference, and they see in Traoré, the president, a chance for a different future. The attack on the Western-based actors who support Traoré is particularly insidious. It implies that only those who reside in Africa have the right to express opinions on African affairs. This is a thinly veiled attempt to silence dissenting voices and maintain the West's monopoly on the African narrative. In conclusion, Obadari's article is a testament to the enduring legacy of Western paternalism. It is a condescending, dismissive, and ultimately harmful attempt to discredit a leader who is attempting to forge a new path for his nation. President Ibrahim Traoré's actions, while undoubtedly controversial, must be understood within the context of Burkina Faso's history and the ongoing struggle for African self-determination. He is not a tyrant. He is a product of his time, and his actions reflect the legitimate grievances of a people who have been marginalized and exploited for far too long. Thank you. I personally feel that we here in the United States, all of us, Black, African American, Latino, of indigenous descent, and Native Americans, including you white people, because how dare you, particularly you white people, talk about make America great again and America first and all of the ideals of freedom and liberty for America, but not for Africa, particularly Burkina Faso. So I think that we, the American people, not the U.S. citizens, but you too, but we, the Americans, African American, Black, Hispanic, Latino, of indigenous descent, Native American, and white, Caucasians, Anglo-Saxon Protestants. We need to stand in solidarity with President Captain Ibrahim Traoré and his pursuit of independence and control of his country and its resources. With that, I say shalom.